I'm Lauren from RDU on Stage, and I'm here with Broadway actor Jonathan Burke. I'm really excited to talk to you because you've been in these incredible shows, but I think you were in a national tour before the incredible Broadway shows. I think you were in a national tour that I loved. You were in Mary Poppins.
Yes, we came there.
Yes, you came to Durham, right? That's
Yes.
what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, actually, I've been there twice on two different tours, maybe even three. So I was there in Mary Poppins. I was also there with Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Awesome.
And I think I was there with Cats, but I'm not exactly sure. If so, it was with Antoine, because that's where he and I met.
Oh, wonderful.
That's
Well,
where.
he's on here too. He's
Yes,
on
yes.
here. And I had the opportunity to interview him for Memphis, which I am very excited to see, I guess in the summer at this point. I don't even know what day it is, clearly.
I know. Who does? Who does? I know. Hopefully it comes, sooner rather than later. He's so fantastic. I got to see him in it on Broadway, and he was phenomenal, of course. So I hope you get to see it, you guys down there in North Carolina. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I love Mary Poppins. I love the tours at DPAC. Did you get to do a painting on the wall? Did you?
Yeah.
You got to sign one of the wall tags, right?
Absolutely.
Or many of the wall tags if you've ever multiple times.
Yeah, definitely. I love when you go on tour. For those who don't know, when you go on tour, all the different theaters around the country have the backstage area in which the touring companies paint murals on the wall to represent their production, and then they sign it. So you have, literally Audra McDonald is like on walls signed backstage, some that I've seen, like The Secret Garden. She was in the tour or something. She signed it, like, different stars, people.
Well, and Robin Williams is on. I remember going backstage at DPAC, and there's Robin Williams' signature. It's like
absolutely. Carol Channing. All kinds of people.
Yes, but before the tours, before these incredible Broadway shows that you've been a part of, you were studying with Miss Hardison at Cardinal Sheehan High School in Baltimore.
Sure. No, Cardinal Sheehan Middle School.
Middle school?
Yeah, Cardinal
I
Sheehan.
thought it was the high school.
No, it was an elementary and middle school private Catholic school in Baltimore, Maryland. That's where I'm from. And that's where I really got the bug for acting and performing, thanks to Kenyatta Hardison. Yeah, she was the head of the drama and music department at the school. And they had a really good program that actually produced a lot of talented artists that are still working today in certain ways. And she was really inspirational and influential in my whole development. She kind of first saw in me the ability to do this. She was doing this musical called Motown the Musical that she created. Actually, it was called Motown Spectacular, before Motown the Musical on Broadway. And she created this story about the Motown stars, and I played Stevie Wonder, and I sang My Cherie Amour, and the first performance, I remember feeling the crazy energy of the audience, and I got a standing ovation after that first song, and I was just like, I'm hooked. I'm here to stay on the stage. I'm going to be an actor. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And from there, I really continued to pursue it. And she is the one that inspired me to go to the high school, which is the Baltimore School for the Arts. She had attended that school, and she thought that it was a good idea for me to attend. So that's the school where Tupac Shakur went, Jada Pinkett Smith went, Tiffany Boone, who was on Little Fires Everywhere and Hunters Now, watch that. Brisha Webb, a lot of Christian Siriano, tons of amazing artists went to that school. And so I went there, and that's where I really, really continued training more heavily, with acting at Baltimore School for the Arts.
Well, shout out to the teachers. I have 2 children, and I'm in awe of the work teachers do. And so many Broadway performers who I've interviewed have talked about that teacher that set them on the path.
Truly. You do not forget those moments. And teachers are so important, especially I think people are realizing during this time when everyone's parents are teaching their children at home. They're realizing how important teachers are. So I'm so grateful to, Kenyatta Hardison. And then in college, there were some influential teachers as well. I ended up going to Ithaca College for musical theater, and Mary Crosaro was a huge influence there. I mean, there are these, and then there was like this after school program that I went to as well during high school called the Arena Players Theater in Baltimore. And there was a teacher there named Troy Burton who also largely was inspirational, to me. So I think there's like benchmarks in each person's lives of these teachers that really changed your life and inspired you.
Yeah, and I think seeing here especially, and I'm sure all over the country, the teachers who are doing this extraordinary work pivoting to virtual learning, oh my gosh, it's incredible.
It really is. And I'm still in touch with all of those teachers today. That's how important they were to me. They've all come to see me, in New York and the shows I was in. And it's amazing I'm sure for them to see the full circle moment,
Yes.
from the beginning to now. I'm so glad that they get to experience it with me. So
I love that. So, so you were cast in the original Broadway cast of Tuck Everlasting. And I just read this amazing article by Noah Heidel, who is the playwright for Birthday Candles. And Birthday Candles was actually supposed to open last week.
Yeah.
And he talks about the dream deferred of opening a Broadway show. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about kind of the dream deferred due to injury of Tuck Everlasting?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I, as you've heard, been working towards being on Broadway. That was my dream since I was in 6th grade in Baltimore. And finally, the time arrived that I got my first Broadway show that I've been dreaming to do. This was in 2016. So there was a new musical called Tuck Everlasting that's based upon the book of the same name. There was a film also that was made based on that as well. So I was very excited. This was directed and choreographed by Casey Nicola. Miller and Tyson wrote it. Nathan Tyson and Chris Miller wrote it. It was a beautiful, beautiful musical. And I was in the ensemble of this musical, dancing. I was very excited. I had one audition and I got cast on one day. So it was kind of a very unexpected thing that happened in my life. I mean, I go on so many auditions all the time. So, you think, oh, it's just another audition. And usually there are rounds of auditions, especially for a Broadway show. But for some reason, there was one day of auditions. I danced, I sang. An hour later, after I left the audition, I got a call that I got the show. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was so excited. Not to mention the fact that I actually had messed up the lyrics to the song in the audition. So I was just like, oh, this is just, who knows? We'll see. I mean, I did a good job, but I did forget the lyrics. They didn't necessarily know it, but, you have to roll with the punches. And just say that to say, like, you may think that something's not perfect, but something that's meant for you is meant for you, regardless of kind of the little small technicalities that may happen. So I got cast in this show. I was very excited. It was an amazing cast of actors, one of which was in the original cast of Cats, the film. Terrence Mann, he played Rum Tum Tugger. And I had watched Cats at Cardinal Sheehan School in Baltimore because Kenyatta Hardison introduced it to me. And I used to watch that VHS over and over and over again, dreaming of like one day doing what they're doing. And here I am making my Broadway debut with one of the people that was in that film. So that was pretty incredible. We had a great time, and rehearsals were going well. And here we are at the 2 days before we start technical rehearsals, where we move into the theater and start putting the show together on stage with lighting and set and costumes and all of that. And we were doing a rehearsal in the rehearsal studio, and I was practicing a piece of choreography, which was an over the log. People don't know what that is. Like, you jump over one leg, like with the other leg, and land on one foot. So when I jumped over and I landed on the side of my foot, and I resulted in a fractured foot. So I was then on medical leave for 2 months because I can't dance on a fractured foot, especially not with what we were doing in that show. I mean, I was in the ensemble as a dancer. So there was no way to really get around that injury. So I was put on medical leave for 2 months, and I was, very devastated by that happening. However, I did think, okay, well, after 2 months, I will be on Broadway and I will be in this show. Little did I know, the show unfortunately closed quicker than we had hoped, and it closed in 2 months. So the week that I was intended to return to the show actually closed. So I never stepped foot on the actual stage to perform this show that I had created and put my heart and soul and was so excited about. I never got to show it to a paying audience or
to an audience
other than the people in the studio. Antoine actually got to see that actually in the studio. We did a run through, and he's like one of my only friends, I think, that saw it. But it was quite devastating. But I will say that after I look back on the whole experience, and I really came to terms with the timing of it, and I said, okay, I was injured right before it was to begin. I was healed right when it was meant to end. The exact frame of 2 months. I said, there has to be some reason, and like I was saying before, everything happens for a reason. There had to have been some reason that this happened to me. There has to be a greater path, something that kept me from this moment to bring me to another moment. And so I didn't realize what that moment was, but I had faith that there would be something. So flash forward to 2 years later, they announced that Choir Boy is coming to Broadway. And so I was very excited because I'd done a regional production of Choir Boy before. And I had worked with Terrell McCraney, who was a playwright of Choir Boy, actually, when we did it regionally in DC at the Studio Theater. And we had become great friends. So I was very excited, like, okay, maybe this will be my Broadway debut. And so it turned out that it was. So I ended up getting cast in Choir Boy. And
talk about that experience. I mean, working with him, he's an Academy Award winning writer of Moonlight.
Yeah.
And talk about that a little bit and that experience working on that show, because it was really an acclaimed show when it opened. It opened New York Times critic pick. Can't get better than that.
Yeah, that's right. Tony nominated, best play, won a few Tonys. Yeah, it was a dream come true, honestly. So like I said, I had done this regional production of Choir Boy in DC. So at that time, he was still developing the script. That was in like 2015, I believe, or 14, something like that. And he was still making changes to the script. It had already been presented off Broadway at Manhattan Theater Club. So he was still changing it. And we didn't realize that it was at all headed to a future of Broadway. It just was another piece of theater that I was excited to be a part of. And I always wanted to work with Terrell because I was a fan of his work. And so we developed a friendship during that time and a working relationship that was very strong. So he actually ended up asking me to audition for his new play that was called Head of Passes, that was happening at Berkeley Repertory Theater in Berkeley, California, that was happening directly after that Choir Boy. So I ended up going to do that production as well, playing a role in that, furthering our connection and my understanding and appreciation for his work. He is so brilliant, and he's a voice that this country really needs. A young Black gay man on the platform that he is pretty unprecedented, at this time, unfortunately. So we need more voices like his. So I was very honored to be a part of that. So we became a Choir Boy, and they were using some of the original cast from off-Broadway. So there was a few guys who had done it before, one of which was Jeremy Pope, who played the leading role. And I was cast in the ensemble and understudying Jeremy, which was the lead role of Ferris, Jonathan Young, that's the character's name, by the way. And I thought that was kind of a cute sign. There's also a character in the play named David Hurd, and my name is Jonathan David Burke, and I had played David in DC. So there were all these connections to this piece that just spoke to my soul and spirit. And that rehearsal room was really, really magical. It was a room full of young hungry, talented, beautiful Black men like myself telling a story about us, which is a story that is not often told, especially a story centering around a Black gay boy. And as a Black gay boy myself, growing up in Baltimore, Maryland, where that's not something that is the norm, it was life-changing. I mean, to be able to tell my story on this platform for people that have never experienced such a thing was incredible. I mean, to see a marquee of 4 Black boy faces above a Broadway show. Oh God, I could cry right now thinking of it. That, I had never seen that, you know, and I know a lot of people hadn't. And every day after the show, there were people that would come up to me and say how grateful they were that we were telling their story, that they also had never seen themselves reflected in such a way so strongly. So that was such a joy. And so throughout the rehearsals, we were working with Camille Brown, who actually was nominated for a Tony Award for that. She was a choreographer. I was a dance captain in the show. So if those who don't know what a dance captain is, means you are the person that has to know every piece of choreography in the show that every person does. So I have to make sure everyone is doing the choreography properly after the choreographer leaves the production, because once we open, the choreographer is no longer part of it. So I'm the one to keep the choreography intact. And then I also have to teach new performers who may join the cast all of the choreography. And in this case, that actually happened because it turned out that the guy who was playing the lead had to leave the show early to do another show, which meant that I had the privilege of being bumped up to full-time performing the leading role in this play, Choir Boy, on Broadway. So they then had to hire a replacement for my track, and I had to teach him the whole show. So while I was also learning the leading role myself, I was also teaching someone else my ensemble and understudy track. So that was quite an experience, but it was literally the culmination of all of my dreams, and which is brings it back to me saying, when I was injured with Tuck Everlasting, I was in a position that wasn't necessarily the way in which I felt as though all of my gifts were most highlighted and shown. I was dancing in the ensemble, which I love to do and it's fun, but I always saw something greater for myself. I always dreamed to be the lead on Broadway. And here I am now making my Broadway debut in a leading role in a play that means so much to me. And this was the way in which I wanted to be introduced really to the Broadway community. So it all happened in the way that it was meant to. And I'm just so grateful. And those weeks that I was able to play that role were the greatest weeks really in my career to this date. It just was really overwhelming and a dream come true. And yes, Antoine, it's all in the timing. It's all a plan, you know. And I know we sometimes, especially performers, all people probably, you know, think this isn't happening the way that I had hoped or expected, but it all is in divine timing. That's right. That's right. It happens when it's supposed to. And that was when it was right for me.
And I don't know if you saw when the comments were shifting up so fast, but Antoine also said Tony Award-winning performance that you gave.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So yesterday was supposed to be Tony Tuesday when the Tony nominations were going to be announced. Did you get to perform on the Tony Awards with Choir Boy?
Sure did. Another dream come true, bucket list goal. Unbelievable experience. We performed one of the numbers from the show. You can watch it on YouTube. You have to look it up. It was a thrilling experience for all of us on the stage. The performance that we did included step dancing, which is something that I had never seen on a Broadway stage. It is a form of dance that has originated in historically Black colleges and universities across the country. Sororities and fraternities have this form of dancing called step dancing, and I have never seen that. And Camille Brown had the brilliant idea to include that in our show because the play is about an all-boys Black private school very fraternity-like. So it meant a lot to have that represented on the stage at Radio City, on Broadway, and on the Tony Awards. We lived our best lives that night. I mean, I just remember waiting for there's like a big, I guess it was a drop or something in front of us before it started. We were all like down in our little crouch positions, and we just looked at each other and were like, let's kill this. We literally said that. Thing went up and it was fire. It was great fun. So that was a dream. Yeah. But the Tony Award this year, I mean, it's so crazy that it's not happening. I mean, and the play I was in this year, unfortunately, wouldn't have a performance, but I wish we could have been still a part of it. But that's as it goes.
We're gonna talk about The Inheritance in a second, because I'm sure whenever the Tony Awards happens, it will be nominated for many Tony Awards. It was nominated for 6 Drama Desk Awards. But before we get into The Inheritance, I'm wondering, with the success of shows like Choir Boy, like Jeremy O. Harris's Slave Play, kind of The Color Purple, kind of Ain't Too Proud, which I don't, those are more, I don't know, those are different kinds of musicals and shows than Choir Boy and Slave Play. But
absolutely,
with Choir Boy and Slave Play, are we starting to see a shift in the kinds of stories and representation we're seeing on the big Broadway stage? I hope we are.
I mean, those were huge, huge steps forward. I will say absolutely. And I think it's a beautiful thing that they exist. And I think that there just need to be more of them. I mean, there are so many different stories that can be told, and there are so many different experiences within communities that people have no idea about, that they would love to know about, but they don't even know that they would. They don't know until they see it. And so someone has to give these people the opportunities to show it. And yes, there is a shift, and I'm so grateful for that shift that is happening. I mean, but it can go further. Absolutely. I mean, there's much more work to be done, but I'm thankful for the work that has happened so far. Yeah. It's great. Like the original, I know what you're meaning in the sense of Choir Boy and Slave Play. They are original works. They are not something that people have seen before. It's not based upon a famous group, like
by strong Black men. It's not a jukebox musical telling the story of the Temptations. Not to minimize that. I can't wait to see Ain't Too Proud.
Yes.
And it doesn't have the big backing of a show like The Color Purple, Oprah's name is not or whatever. I mean, these are shows that are completely original stories, and that's what I want to see more of.
Yeah, and they were wildly successful. So that should show people that people are craving for this type of material. Hopefully that keeps going and people see more work like this. I mean, luckily someone mentioned I was also able to be in a play called Tony Stone after Choir Boy. That was with Roundabout Theater Company, and it was about the first Black professional female baseball player who played with men in the Negro Leagues. Her name was Tony Stone. Everyone should look her up. She's an incredible inspiration. We are nominated for some awards too as well in this season. Drama Desk, Lucille Lortel. So Tony Stone, if you can ever do research on her. But that was another piece. It was an all-Black cast. It was, 9 men and 1 woman, or 8 men or something like that. All men and 1 woman. And it was an incredible experience, and people loved it. It was a New York Times Critics Pick as well. These are stories. They're out there. People just have to put in the work to find them and to fund them.
Well, and I think funding and producing, that's the key right there. You just said it, is we have to, but people will come. People will come see. I mean, one of the most extraordinary plays I saw here in Chapel Hill was Jump. by Charlie Yvonne Simpson. It's an
Mm-hmm.
extraordinary play, and I know she's having a lot of success in New York right now. We need to just see more stories.
That's right.
More stories, because that's what, to me, theater brings people together. And the more stories and the more representation we can see on stage, the more I think we realize that we're more alike than different, and the
That's
more
right.
we get curious about each other in a good way, in a positive way.
Yeah, and there's no better time than now for us to realize that. I think this moment of this quarantine, you know, everyone is realizing how important connections with others are. You know, we miss that, we crave that. And I think in some ways, this time is bringing people together, even though it's a sad time, it's a hard time, but it is bringing people together in a beautiful way. I'm connecting with people that I haven't spoken to in years. I mean, last night I was on a group FaceTime with my friends from high school. We have never all been together in years. I mean, but we decided to do that because it was like, let's connect with each other. We're playing games like we used to do together because we miss that connection.
Yeah, it's a weird time to be. I'm guessing, I'm not a theater maker, I'm a theater lover, but as a theater lover, it's a weird time, because what I love is that collective, communal, live experience, and we just don't have that right now. I'm appreciative of the creativity happening with all these live streams and virtual
Absolutely.
everythings, but I can't wait to get back to live.
Yeah, that's the beauty. That's what makes theater so special. That's why it's different than any other medium. That's why I fell in love with theater, was that initial roar of that audience in 6th grade at Cardinal Sheehan School singing My Cherie Amour. I mean, there was nothing like that feeling of sharing an experience, energy being transferred from audience to performer, from performer to audience, sharing in a story, sharing in an experience in the moment that everyone is going through. Unlike, you know, a film, it's a distance. I mean, yes, film work is incredible and it's a different medium. It's a whole different thing, but there's nothing like that live theater. So I cannot wait for the day that theaters are back open. It will happen. We just don't know when, but it will happen. And it is necessary. Theater is vital to humanity. I don't care what anyone says. It is. So
it's important, and it's important in the stories that we tell, for sure. A friend of mine, Timothy Locklear, went to see The Inheritance last fall. And then he wrote an article about it on RDU on Stage, because he felt, we had a conversation about it, and he said, I wish every young gay person could see this play because it's so important. And so he ended up purchasing the script because he wanted to read it afterwards.
mm-hmm.
And the script is about this thick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 400 pages.
Yes.
Something like 400 pages.
So talk about, as a performer, being, first of all, being cast in such an epic work. I mean, this is Olivier award-winning play. So talk about kind of the significance of The Inheritance, being cast in a significant work like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the challenge of bringing basically a 2-part play, basically two 2.5 hour, 3-hour plays.
3.5 hour.
3.5, because it's 7 hours, right? The
7 hours. Yes.
7 hours. So, and multiple times a week you're doing that. So talk about the challenges, and then talk about the significance of the work itself.
Yeah, so when I first heard about The Inheritance, I was doing Choir Boy, actually, or it was like right after Choir Boy, and I got an audition for a workshop of this play called The Inheritance that was in London that they wanted to bring to New York, but they didn't have any dates of Broadway. They just were wanting to workshop, which is what a lot of plays, most plays, I think actually every show does at least some sort of workshop or some type of developmental work before it is presented, you know, for paying audiences in New York. So I got this audition for this play called The Inheritance, and I was so excited because I then like did research on it. I said, oh, this is Olivier Award winning. It won Best Play, it won Best Actor. I mean, it won Best Director. It won so many things. And I read the script and it was phenomenal. Unfortunately, I was already cast in Tony Stone at Roundabout Theater Company, and this workshop conflicted with that. So I was unable to do it. And I was so bummed because I said, this is seminal work for the theater. This is important work, and I really want to be a part of this. But I again said to myself, you know what? It's in the timing. I'm not able to do this workshop, but I'm going to be in this play. I know that I will. This play is meant for me. And so flash forward to them announcing that's going to be coming officially to Broadway, and it turned out that they still were having auditions for the play, and I actually did audition this time, and I got it. So I was very excited. Matthew Lopez, who was a playwright, is brilliant, young Puerto Rican gay man, also very important voice to be heard. So I was thrilled to tell a story about our community. So the play is basically about 3 generations of gay men in New York City and what has been passed down or not passed down due to the AIDS epidemic. So that, in a nutshell, it's very vast, and it deals with so many different relationships within the community, and you know, politics, and you know, love and community. I mean, it's really about community, and it's an epic, as you say, story. It spans many years. I got to play many characters, which was also very, very cool. A lot of us got to play several characters. I think I played like 7 characters, something like that, throughout the whole thing. I mean, 7 hours. So, and also, we were on stage basically the entire time. So it's one of those collective storytelling type of plays in which there was no set, literally no set pieces other than one chair, a blank stage that had an elevator that raised up and down a little bit, that just to elevate a certain part of the stage or lower. And that was it. Us, props, and storytelling. And I love that because you really got to invest in these characters. And I think it was a challenge for sure to be fully invested in the story for 7 hours. And we would do both parts on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Normally shows only do 2 days of 2 shows a day. We did 3 days of 2 shows a day. And then the other 2 days we would do part one of the show, which is still 3.5 hours, which is still long. So, I mean, it never really let up. So, but the importance of that dedication and focus, it took a lot of focus, of energy, of emotion, but we were all so connected with each other. We all held each other up. Again, it was a cast actually as well of 12 men and 1 woman. The legendary Lois Smith, she's incredible. She was the one female in the play, but the rest of us, it was men holding each other up and telling our story. And it was, again, one of those things after each performance, there were so many people sobbing. I mean, I've never heard such a response from an audience verbally. I could feel the energy in the whole space shift, not to give away what happens at the end, but there's a very emotional ending to both parts, in which people just are overwhelmed, and some people couldn't even leave their seats. I mean, and then afterwards, they would speak to, again, each of us about how they were so thankful that we told their story, and that a lot of people felt like it was a catharsis for them. it was also a way for them to feel connected to partners, friends, family members that they lost during that epidemic. So it was a huge honor to be a part of it. And it was a great group of people. I love them so much. I mean, we still talk all the time. We have our Zoom reunions like everyone's doing. We have our group texts. Um, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm so grateful to have had it. And I'm sad that it was cut short. We actually were performing it on the day when Broadway shut down. So thankfully, though, the last performance, which we did not know was going to be the last performance, was filmed for Lincoln Center Library. So both parts were filmed in that day, and it was sold out audiences, amazing audiences, incredible energy. So now anyone who didn't get to see it, go to the Lincoln Center Library in New York, and you can check it out if you have 7 hours. It's worth it. I'm telling you, it is worth it. You can do one part in one day, you can do the second part another day, or you can do it all in one day. People would do it that way when they would come see the show. Sometimes they would do both in one day or wait. It just kind of depended on what kind of energy a person had. I think it's great to watch it all at once because you really, really get to invest in this story, and people felt as though they were like, knew these characters. They were like, I felt like I was so invested by the end. And they say they didn't want it to end. Even though it's 7 hours, people were like, I could watch more. It was very similar to binge watching a TV show, people expressed. It's just like you keep watching because there's all these like exciting cliffhanger moments, and it's just great storytelling. So if you get a chance to watch it at Lincoln Center, please do.
Well, and I'm so happy. I didn't realize it had been filmed, so I'm so thrilled that it was filmed for that, because that's an archive forever. That's our Broadway archive, that library, and thank goodness for it. You mentioned, so the show was actually supposed to close in March, sadly, but then closed prematurely because of this crazy pandemic that we're navigating. So do you get a sense of closure? Because I would guess, being in any performance, any show, when you have that closing night, that just is the culmination of all this hard work. It's a celebration. It's a little sad, I'm sure. When you kind of get robbed of that, do you get the sense of closure? And do all these Drama Desk nominations kind of bring a new validation to the work?
You know what? It is very unfortunate that we didn't get that great sense of closure that you yearn to have from an experience such as this, such an important experience. But I do say to folks that I do feel like at least we already knew that we were closing soon. We were supposed to close that Sunday, the end of that week. So the last performance was on a Wednesday. So we were all kind of preparing ourselves, mentally and emotionally to, close. So we were headed toward that place. Were we quite there yet? No. Did we expect it to be that day? No. But it wasn't as devastating as some of these other shows that didn't even get to start or did one performance and then close, or didn't even start performances. So those I can imagine, and they may not go back. Some of them may not, who knows, go back to performance. But it was hard, but the good thing is we actually were able to kind of come together and do like a little closing party right before they shut down New York, period, just when they shut down Broadway. we didn't know that we probably shouldn't be still in public. They weren't told that yet. So we had a moment together in which we all did get to say, our goodbyes and thank yous. And because some folks live in London, some people are gone, we won't see them until they ever come back to America or we go there. So it was really important to have that moment. And I'm thankful for that. But these award nominations are so wonderful. It brings some great joy and light to what can be a very dark time right now. So when we heard about these nominations, we all, celebrated virtually about it. And we hope that we win some of them. We'll see. I mean,
I'm not a voter, but I'm thinking Probably, if I were a betting person,
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I'd place my money on the inheritance for sure.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I have a lot of young people that follow me, and I have my own daughter who's a senior in high school, and their senior years have all those pivotal moments in your senior year, prom and graduation has kind of all been cut short.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to all the seniors in high school right now.
Absolutely, I do.
But so many of them are making these huge decisions about performing arts programs and where to take their education next and what to do to pursue a career in the arts, trying to make these decisions virtually. So I know you went to Ithaca, you got a BFA. Do you have any advice for these young people who are looking forward, making these decisions? What questions should they be asking? Because those questions are more important than ever in this virtual world of their potential college programs. What advice do you have for them?
Well, the first thing I always say about colleges is that, every college is not for everyone. Just because someone else had a great experience there doesn't necessarily mean that you will. Just because someone had a bad experience there, you could have a great experience. It's really all dependent on your personal relationship with the professors, the energy of a space. I was very much in tune with the energy of the school that felt right to me. I was luckily able to visit them. I know that you students now, unfortunately, won't be able to do that, so the things that I would ask and that I asked myself when visiting and when looking for these schools, I asked myself, what is the size of the program? How much individual attention will I be able to get? Do they have a study abroad program? Do they have a senior showcase? Who are their alumni, and what is the alumni connection to the current students? Where's the location of the school? I mean, where do you want to spend 4 years honing your craft? Where will be most advantageous to you? Because there are people, I was accepted to NYU, but I didn't feel like I wanted to be in New York City studying. I thought it would be more advantageous for me to be in Ithaca, New York, very isolated, where I could just focus on that. That was for me. There are other people I know that went to NYU and loved the opportunity. There are amazing opportunities to be in New York and study. I mean, that is a whole different type of experience. It kind of depends on what you feel would be best for you. And I know that's hard to know when you're young, but try to really dig inside and really think about, what would be best for you. And the other thing is, all of these programs are really come down to it. They're all great. They all have so many things to give, and it really is a lot about what the students make of them. So if you go to whatever school it is, and if you work your hardest and get everything you can, soak up every moment, you're going to come out on top, and it'll be a great experience. I mean, so I don't think that people should get bogged down on, this school was ranked this and this one wasn't ranked that. It really is not important that as much as it seems to. I know it seems that way when you're young, but it really isn't, because you can still grow and become an amazing artist at any of these places. So
I love that. I want to get to Antoine's question because he has a great one. So, and it piggybacks on this school question. What realities do you wish the performing arts schools and programs would teach up and coming actors and artists?
Yeah, one thing, I actually just did a survey from my college. They asked about, ways they could change the program, and asking all these questions. And one of the things that I think a lot of programs are missing is some sort of class or course about the business side of the business, because it's not all just art and fun. It actually is a huge business, a multi-million-dollar business, especially in New York City. I mean, so there are things that you just don't know about, ways in which to find agents and ways to which to find, managers, and what does that mean, and percentages of money that you put into 401ks, and there's so many factors that are part of this business that I think a lot of students don't just really know about. So I think that would be a great lesson for programs to add.
I totally agree. Alton Fitzgerald White. He's actually one of my favorite performers, and
Yeah, he's
wrote
great.
this
He's
beautiful
amazing.
book about mastering life's daily performance. He was in The Lion King for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And he talks a lot about the business side of performing, and I think he's working on a new book just to address that, because so many schools don't address that.
Right. Contracts. I mean, it's so much that goes into it. So yeah, that would be great.
We have another question, and I'm going to tell everyone right now that we get thrown off of Instagram after an hour. So we've got about like 8 minutes left, but I do want to ask this question from Son of Howard. Thinking about works like Slave Play, and Kill Move Paradise, Son of Howard, your question kind of, what are your thoughts on the need for, I think what his question is what are your thoughts on the need for more work like that, or for more representation on stage, which we talked a lot about, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that it is vital to theater, because theater is supposed to represent the world in which we live. And if that's not happening, then you're not doing real theater.
His question is, what are the needs for counselors and therapists on those projects?
Oh, that's a whole different
question.
So
thank you. So his question was cut off. I'm like, what is the need for ... I was like, no.
Yeah.
For counselors and therapists.
You know what? After Slave Play, when I went to go see it, they had people in the lobby that were able to talk with audience members, because it was so intense of an experience. And I think that was great. I think that it's very important, and I think more shows to do that, especially these shows that deal with very heavy, complex issues. I mean, I think that The Inheritance could have used someone in the lobby like that as well. Choir Boy could have used that as well. I mean, Tony Stone could have used it as well. We did do, for those plays, we had talkbacks, which was great, and it was a great way for people to, release and really kind of comb through their emotions and their experience. But I think that was only, here and there. It wasn't every show. It was whenever they set that up. But I think that it's really important, because theater can bring up a lot of real issues for people and real emotional experiences, which is what it should do. That's what theater is for. And so, and for the artists, I see he's asking also for others. Yeah, for the artists, I mean, I think all people could benefit from any sort of therapy, or, someone to speak to about emotions, because we all have these things, that we experience. And it's helpful to get it out. So I think that it would be great if they set something like that up for the artists as well, because we are putting ourselves through it every day, and it can bring up some things for us personally. So that would be very useful. I find, now we just find our own ways to process it. That's what we have to do, but it would be great.
Well, and there's so much on the performer's end and on the audience end to unpack with so many of these shows. I saw Jagged Little Pill, and it touched me in such a raw emotional chord with me that I was sad I saw it by myself, because I really needed to discuss it with someone. So I think a lot of these shows just strike a chord with people that you got to unpack those emotions and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just have a few minutes left, so I want to know, what advice would you have for middle school Jonathan singing My Cherie Amour
Oh my
as
God.
Stevie Wonder? What advice would you have for him? What would you say to him now, knowing what you know?
Oh God. I would say don't be afraid or waste any time not being who you are. Don't shy away from it. Embrace it, because that is what makes you special, and that is what people will gravitate towards and will bring more joy and light to your life and to the world. That for me, and that is something that I think that I say to all artists and young artists, and people, when you are able to really live in the truth of who you are, nothing can stop you, because that is your greatest gift. No one else in the world is like you. So once you can just embrace that for all, whatever may seem bad or some people might not like or this or that, it is what makes you you. So that's it. That's a winning lesson for me. And once I finally was able to do that, I think I really began to soar.
Well, and that's what it's all about. Lachlan Watson was on with my friend Ariane Mobasher last night, and they said the same thing about their career is the minute they stopped trying to be something that they were not, that's when the success happened.
I can't, it's so true. It is so true. Yep, absolutely.
Well, we're approaching the hour. I'm so grateful you spent time with me this afternoon. You have so many fans who are, there's been, I think there may have been a record number of hearts and
Oh.
love on the comments here. So thank you so much. For those of you who tuned in late, this will live on the art. I'm going to archive this conversation, and it'll live on the RDU on Stage website. And Jonathan, I will text you or message you when that happens so you can share it out in the world, and I will share it as well.
Oh, wonderful. And you guys can follow me if you want at
Yes.
John DB, JONDB with 3 E's at the end. If you want to see what else I'm up to, at John DB.